Yeah.
Very effective. And just for everybody at home, the reason why Barry had to yell is that we are socially distancing.
Yeah.
So we had Walt, who is here for the next agenda item, the referral, request for rezoning of the lands at 230 Salt Road from R2 to R3 to the planning board. And Walt was sitting out in the lobby, which has got to be, I don't know, 100 feet from where you're sitting, Barry?
Not too far away.
Yeah, okay. Well, you heard him, so. Walt, by all means.
Okay, good evening. I'm Walt Baker with DSB Engineers. With me tonight is Mr. Richard Battisti of Forest Creek Equity Corporation. Forest Creek Equity Corporation is contract vendee for the request to rezone the application from R2 to R3 for the two properties totaling 69.5 acres on the east side of Salt Road across from Morley Way, presently owned by Nancy Schwenzer and William and Martha Smith. The map I posted on the board and submitted with our application. We're proposing to call the subdivision Aberdeen Estates. And, like I mentioned, we did submit two plans for the project. As the board will recall, the owners of the property, Schwenzer and Smith, received R2 zoning of the property from large lots in 2018, but not the development for cluster development which they were pursuing. Over the past 3 years, they have tried to sell the property as R2 without any luck. Our client, Forest Creek Equity, wishes to propose a single-family residential subdivision under the R3 conventional zoning, not cluster development, with the same number of lots that could be built with the R2 zoning, which would be 79 lots. We did submit, like I mentioned, the two plans, one showing the R3, which I posted here, that you can see is rendered, and also the R2 plan, which basically is justification showing how many lots we can get under the R2 conventional zoning, which is 79. We have included both the plans, like I mentioned, and the difficulty with the R2 zoning is the minimum lot size is 28,000 square feet versus the R3 zoning, which is 22,000 square feet. The lot width for both the R3 and the R2 is still 100 feet wide, and we're going to maintain the 100-foot minimum lot width of 100 feet. Now, with the rezoning, we can offer the community flexibility in lot size, road alignment, and allow us to preserve some of the trees on the east side of the property. I'm sure you've studied the map, and you can notice on the east side of the property there are some mature trees along the eastern property line. And with the R3 zoning, we're able to take the lot depth, which would be 220 feet deep versus 280 feet deep, and preserve the trees and have deeper lots actually on the east side. The lots that we're proposing on the east side would be in excess of 320 feet. So we can preserve the trees and keep those in the backyard. We do understand that the code for the town board permits a referral of this application to the planning board. Basically, with the rezoning, the town board has the permission to submit it to the planning board for review and recommendation back to the town board before petitioning for the rezoning officially with public hearing. This application was before, basically, the owners of the property 3 years ago had this application in front of the town board, and at that time it went to the planning board, did receive the review and recommendation in June of 2018 that the planning board would be in support from the large lot to R2 or R3 zoning. If that would still be valid, that would help us in our time frame to move forward a little bit quicker and avoid going to the planning board, even though once we do get the rezoning, if we get it, we still have to go for subdivision site plan approval with the planning board. Well, basically, with this referral tonight, we would ask the town board if it could possibly be viewed that the recommendation from the planning board in 2018 is still valid.
I looked at you, now Charlie, I just had a conversation with you today, and I want to not talk out of both sides of my mouth. I said that I don't practice law, I have lawyers practice law, right?
Correct.
So, I'm going to tell you my non-legal interpretation of this. Is that, I agree with Walt that there is a letter here that the planning board in mid-18, so almost 3 years ago.
Correct.
It'll be 3 years in June.
Pretty close.
Sent over and said that they were recommending that it could be R2 or R3. And at that time, it was decided to go to R3. I'm
Correct.
sorry,
R2.
Unless you tell me that there's some statute of limitations that that letter is still valid and we can bypass the rest of the process.
Well, it's not, it obviously it's up to the board. It does say may permit it to go. Standard practice has always been that they do review. By they, I mean the planning board. The application is similar in the sense that the application, I believe, last time was from R2 to R3 also, correct? Or was it?
No.
Was it? No, it was large lot to R2.
Yep.
Large lot to R2.
And then they wanted to do a cluster development, was their goal was to do cluster development, which the planning board will not support. And we're not attempting to get cluster development, we're asking for R3 zoning, and they were in support of R2 and R3, so they
Yeah, I
stated
don't have
that.
that letter in front of me, I can't judge, I don't know if the
I
town
see
board
it.
does. If they can judge that if the facts are the same or similar enough that you can waive that effectively,
Yeah.
but if not, then you probably should refer it.
I only have, and believe me, if I understand this properly,
The
this
last,
is, no, I see the letter.
Dan, the
but
letter's the last
This
page.
is R3,
That is R2,
this is R2,
correct,
sorry. And this is the concept for R3,
correct, that's what we'd prefer to do, correct.
which is a whole lot nicer than this one, I just might add.
Well, that's a conventional justification
Yeah.
plan on how many
Yeah.
lots you could conceivably get with the R2 lot sizes.
The only reason I would say that perhaps we don't want to try to skip over any of the the process here is that the letter from the planning board is proposed by Sunset Farm subdivision.
Yeah.
So I want to be sure that we're granting the rezone for the right people. Would that be an issue if we were to try to skip a step?
I don't think we should skip a step.
I don't think so
I don't think so either.
I don't know why we're even going that direction.
Well, we're not going, Walt asked the question,
Yeah, okay.
and I will tell you that
No,
public hearing's over, so
No, this isn't a public hearing on this.
no, this is not. Like I said, my non-legal, and we've had some other cases here recently that are kind of similar, that just because governance of this town said something 2, 4, 6, 7 years ago, if it didn't move forward, I think we've set a precedent that, well, it's a dynamic world. We can't go back and just, unless there's something legally, and I get what you're saying, Charlie, the board has some flexibility on this, but, well, I hope you understand, I think it would be a bad precedent. Some of the other cases that we've dealt with is that when the planning board looked at the situation back in 2, 4, 6 years ago, they approved something, or they referred something. Then it never went forward. Well, then the world developed around it. And now looking at it 2, 4, 5 years later, like, well, no, we don't want to do that now. And I don't think that's going to be the case with this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But where do we draw the line? Does somebody come in with a letter from 4 years ago, from 6 years ago, from 8 years ago? Where do we draw the line? And I know the planning board recently, and I say recently within the last 10 years, they started to overtly write into their template approvals substantial groundbreaking within 1 year, because I had heard, and of course I'm still relatively new
Substantial
to this,
construction within 1 year, right.
that people were taking their planning board approvals and coming back and saying, hey, I'm here. It's been 7 years, but I'm ready to go. I want to get my pre-construction meeting. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you know, that planning board approval was from 7 years ago. So I don't know.
I would recommend that we send it to the planning board for final review and send a recommendation back to us to go to R3, simply because originally this was large lot. Then you went to R2, now you want to go to R3. It's not necessarily in the nature of what the town comprehensive plan wanted to do. So that's why I think it should go back to the planning board for review.
That's another variable to this. I mean, we're piling on now, but I think it sounds like there's a consensus that we are going to have to follow the referral back to the planning board. Now, I will say this, you know, we've made great efforts, Josh, I think, to try to come up with a customer service model to streamline the process and not kick applicants around from board to board like it's a tennis game for 9 months. So, when is the next planning board meeting?
April 6th, I believe.
Okay. Now, here's one for you, Charlie. If we go to the April 1st meeting, our board meeting,
Yes.
on the assumption that the planning board is going to refer this back to us, and I think they will, on April 6th, could we set a public hearing for April 15th?
If you think you're going to, sure, you can always set the public hearing, and the assumption being that you're going to have a report and a recommendation.
And if the planning board doesn't refer it
You
back to
could-
us, then we cancel the public hearing.
Correct, or just
That makes
adjourn.
sense, Walt?
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yes, understood. Yeah.
Which, you know, means you'll be back in front of us at tax day.
Yeah. They postponed it.
They postponed it a month.
Did they? Oh, that's right. Traditional tax day. I don't know, is this a motion thing?
Yes.
Refer it?
Yes.
We have to refer it to the planning board.
We do? There's a lot of paperwork here tonight, isn't there, Dolly? Oh, there it is, okay. Okay. Well, I'll make a motion for the Webster Town Board to refer to the planning board an application to consider amending the town's zoning map and zoning ordinance, Chapter 225 Code of the Town of Webster by rezoning 69.6 acres of land located on the east side of Salt Road from R2 residential to R3 residential. I'm going to read this one. At a regular board meeting of the Town of Webster held on March 18th.
Tom?
Yes.
I don't think you have to go any further.
Unless you'd like to.
Oh, I would really like to not.
You don't have to.
You made your resolution.
Second?
Thank you.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Capaldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Right. Very good.
So we'll, April 6th?
Yes. We'll make application next week for the planning board and get the application in prior to the cutoff date. So we'll be on for the April 6th planning board meeting. In the meantime, we'll prepare the documents that we need for the town board for the public hearing on the 15th. If in fact the planning board doesn't recommend the rezoning, then we'll send a letter pulling our application for the town board on the 15th.
All right, thanks, Walt.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.